Welcome, brothers and sisters, to the Mormon Movie Reviews, where LDS movie lovers belong. My name is D-Baze, and today is September 28th, 2022. This is episode 29, and we will be reviewing The Life of Nephi in 1915 with a running time of 45 minutes. The Life of Nephi is a silent film that is based mostly off of 1st Nephi in the Book of Mormon. The film premiered in theaters only in Salt Lake City on October 25th, 1915, and it has a running time of 3 reels. After its run in theaters, the film was never shown again, and only about 40 stills have since resurfaced. So how long is a 3-reel movie anyway? Well, it is tradition to discuss the length of a theatrical motion picture in terms of reels. The standard length of a 35mm film reel is about 1,000 feet, which runs approximately 11 minutes for a sound film and about 15 minutes for a silent film. With 3 reels, silent film, maybe somewhere around the time frame of about 45 minutes. Now, the film background, in about 1908 or so, the first movie theater opened in Utah. And this prompted many Utah-based filmmakers, both professional and unprofessional, to make short films. Many of these early films were very basic in nature and pertained to Mormon life, like highlights from General Conference or tours of historic LDS sites like Temple Square. The Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints wanted to start producing faith-promoting films that focused on topics such as church history and the Book of Mormon to counter such films that had been released prior to this, like Mountain Meadows Massacre, which focused on the church's dark past. Now, The Life of Nephi was not the first official LDS sanctioned movie that was officially sanctioned. That honor goes to the 1913 classic 100 Years of Mormonism, which I intend to review at a future date. The production of The Life of Nephi, it was started with William A. Morton. He was a prolific author of missionary tracts throughout the late 19th and early 20th centuries. In 1888, at the age of 22, he was baptized into the church and he eventually immigrated over to Utah. Now, he was chosen to write and produce the film based off of 1st Nephi. Now, I have read that it was an officially sanctioned church movie to begin with. However, the church was unable to pay Morton for the film, so he took production into his own hands by hiring Anton J.T. Sorensen and William J. Byrne to help him with the film. The Life of Nephi was filmed entirely on the outskirts of Salt Lake City, and as was commonplace for a silent film, many professional and unprofessional actors, mostly unprofessional actors, were used during the filming. Now, this was a silent movie, so typically inside of a silent theater during the time, you would usually have either an organ or a piano. It would be projected on the front of the screen here, and then the organ would accompany film to add drama. But you could have some words that could be shown to the audience on time of the screen, but there would be no talking dialogue on screen at this time. And none of the stills that we have recovered from The Life of Nephi show any dialogue on the screen. Now, remember, this is before the first real talking film, which was 1927, The Jazz Singer. This caused a sensation, so we're about 12 years away from having real dialogue on the screen. That's what they Yeah, so that caused quite a sensation, but we are not there at this point in time yet. Where did this film premiere? Well, I don't know where it premiered. It was somewhere in Salt Lake City. Perhaps it was at Utah's first movie theater, which was the Empire Theater, which has since been demolished. But it opened in 1908, and it was the first movie theater in Salt Lake. It was located on State Street. The building was built in 1906. They would be able to show vaudeville acts along with these short movies as well. So 1st Nephi is the first book in the Book of Mormon. It's one of the 4 books in the Book of Mormon with the name of Nephi. Now, the original translation of the title did not include the word first. First and second were added by Oliver Cowdery when he was preparing the book for printing in late 1829. According to the book itself, a first-person narrative of a prophet named Nephi of events that happened around 600 BC and recorded on the small plates of Nephi approximately 30 years later. Its 22 chapters tell the story of one family's challenges and the miracles that they witness as they escape from Jerusalem, struggle to survive in the wilderness, build a ship, and sail to America. Now, the book is comprised of 2 genres. One, a historical narrative describing events and conversions, and another one is a summary of poetry. So that's what it's all about. But we're going to be following this particular article that I found here. These stills would have been in black and white, but they colored these, making them be in color. There's about 40 stills that they found from the film, and I'm going to show you 13 of them. Now, without having personally seen the 39 glass slides, I don't know whether these black and white prints are duplicates of the image in that set or not. It's hard to know. But since we're going to be kind of walking through the movie in chronological order using these stills, I thought that we could set the mood a little bit. This is kind of the silent film score that you would hear. So the first scene that we have is Lehi and his family in the wilderness. You'll be able to eventually be able to pick out especially Nephi and Sam, the so-called righteous ones, and Laman and Lemuel. You'll be able to pick them out as we go along. Now, Lehi's sons, they are returning to Jerusalem to obtain the plates of brass from Laban, who was a leader among the Jews, and he refused to give the plates up. So Nephi exhorts and encourages his brethren. Eventually, Laban steals Nephi's property and attempts to slay all of Lehi's sons. Laman and Lemuel smite Nephi and Sam and are reproved by the angel. So this is around the time frame, I would say 600 BC to 592. Now, this film is showing cows, but Lehi would almost have certainly used camels. However, camels in Salt Lake City might have been a little bit hard to come by at this time. A lot of the movie here comes from 1 Nephi chapter 3. About half of the movie is based off of this one chapter, which is probably the most famous chapter in the entire Book of Mormon. The next photo that we have here is Nephi and Sam and Laman and Lemuel. So here is Nephi, here is Sam, here's Laman, and here's Lemuel. So you'll have to keep those straight going forward, and they are drawing or casting lots. This is from chapter 3, verse 11, and we cast lots who of us should go in unto the house of Laban, and it came to pass that the lot fell upon Laman. And Laman went in unto the house of Laban, and he talked with him as he sat in the house. So this is called kleromani, which is mentioned over 50 times in the Bible. The practice of casting lots is mentioned quite a few times in the Old Testament and even a few times in the New Testament. We're going to see Nephi here, and he's talking with Laban. Laban has the brass plates here, and Nephi is trying to obtain them. And here's the famous breastplates of Laban that is there in the background. This seems like a peaceful encounter, but the record in 1 Nephi chapter 3 indicates otherwise. In verse 25, we read, "When Laban saw our property, that it was exceedingly great, he did lust after it, insomuch that he thrust us out and sent his servants to slay us, that he might obtain our property." I like these little brass plates here. There's only about 6 of them here, and some might not think that's that very accurate. Now, our next scene here is with Nephi and Sam and Laman and Lemuel and the angel. And this is from chapter 3, verse 28. "As Laman and Lemuel smote us with a rod, behold, an angel of the Lord came and stood before them, and he spake unto them, saying, Why do you smite your younger brother with a rod? And after the angel had spoken with us, he departed." So eventually the sons of Lehi are able to return with the brass plates. This is in chapter 4. "And it came to pass that we took the plates of brass and the servants of Laban and departed into the wilderness and journeyed unto the tent of our father." There's those brass plates, just a few characters on the top of them. And here again is Nephi and Sam, whereas Laban, he's always, he's off to the side. He's stubborn. He's looking down. He's not into it. Now, Lehi here is relating his dream to his family. And Lehi's vision includes a path leading to a tree symbolizing salvation with an iron rod along the path, whereby followers of Jesus may hold to the rod and avoid wandering off into the pits or waters, symbolizing the ways of sin. The vision also includes a large building wherein the wicked look down at the righteous and mock them. Notice that the whole family, Lehi's whole family, is paying attention, except for Laman and Lemuel. Those guys, they are just not paying attention. Eventually, Nephi has a vision in chapter 10. "For it came to pass that after I had desired to know the things that my father had seen, and believing that the Lord was able to make them known unto me, as I sat pondering in my heart, I was caught away in the spirit of the Lord, yea, into an exceeding high mountain which I had never before seen, and upon which I had never set foot." So Nephi eventually speaks of the Son of God. That's what we're seeing here, is the Mother of God, or it was changed later, I believe in 1838, to the Mother of the Son of God. Then we have the wedding scene, which takes place in chapter 16, verse 7. And this is in the valley of Lemuel. They're on their way out. "And it came to pass that I, Nephi, took one of the daughters of Ishmael to wife, and also my brethren took up the daughters of Ishmael to wife, and also Zoram took the eldest daughter of Ishmael to wife." I wonder what kind of handshake they're doing there. You remember, this is okay, maybe I'm reading too much into that. Let's skip that over. Never mind. Strike that. So here's they're finding the brass director, which we find later on in the Book of Mormon is named the Liahona. Now, the Liahona was found one morning at Lehi's tent door, and it is described as a round brass ball of, quote, curious workmanship with 2 spindles, end quote, one of which indicated the direction that his party should travel. Now, Laman, he has his back turned to it. He's not into it. And this, I believe, is supposed to be Ishmael here. Ishmael is pointing his finger at the director, which was also known as a compass. Very soon thereafterwards, Ishmael, he dies. And he dies in a place that is called Nahom, which is a very interesting point. I'm going to come back to that Nahom. There's 27 people in this still, by the way. Now, the narrative of the Book of Mormon itself gives a number of at least 20, but John Sorensen puts the number at, say, 40 to 50. When you do a Google search for Nahum, it's all Book of Mormon stuff, because that's really very important to those Book of Mormon. And as I said, how many others traveled with Lehi to the Promised Land? Well, if you look at the actual account itself, we have all of these folks: Lehi, Sariah, Nephi, Laman, Lemuel, and a couple unnamed people, at least 20. But John L. Sorensen, he puts it between 40 and 50 people who actually entered the boat. Laman and Lemuel eventually seized Nephi and bound him hand and foot. This is from chapter 18, where we read, "And I, Nephi, began to fear exceedingly, lest the Lord should be angry with us and smite us because of our iniquity, that we should be swallowed up in the depths of the sea. Wherefore I, Nephi, began to speak to them with much soberness. But behold, they were angry with me, saying, We will not that our younger brother shall be a ruler over us. And Laman and Lemuel did take me and bind me with cords, that they did treat me with much harshness. Nevertheless, the Lord did suffer it, that he might show forth his power unto the fulfilling of his word, which he had spoken unto the wicked." It's kind of funny through all of these particular stills that everyone seems to be wearing bathrobes. Eventually, in that same chapter, in chapter 18, they arrive in the Promised Land in verse 23. "And after we had sailed for the space of many days, we did arrive in the Promised Land, and went forth upon the land, and did pitch our tents, and we did call it the Promised Land." Eventually, the Nephites and the Lamanites, they are separated in 2 Nephi chapter 5. I'm going to read you the chapter heading. "The Nephites separate themselves from the Lamanites, keep the law of Moses, and build the temple. Because of their unbelief, the Lamanites are cut off from the presence of the Lord, are cursed, and become a scourge." Now, that particular chapter heading has been changed quite a bit. If you read one of the most famous verses in the Book of Mormon, which also comes from the same scene in the same chapter, it's 2 Nephi chapter 5, verse 21 and 22. "And the Lord caused a cursing to come upon the Lamanites, yea, even a sore cursing because of their iniquity. For behold, they had hardened their hearts against him, that they had become like unto flint. Wherefore, as they were white and exceedingly fair and delightsome, that they might not be enticing unto my people, I, the Lord God, did cause a skin of blackness to come upon them. And thus saith the Lord God, I will cause that they shall be loathsome unto thy people." So you'll see that the Nephites here are represented more in white, and the Lamanites are already a little bit more in dark. Conclusion: the film appears to skip the Isaiah passages from the second half of 1 Nephi, probably because those passages would not make for very good cinema. Now, as is common with many silent films of the time, many of the reels corroded due to multiple issues, including poor storage. While about 40 stills from the life of Nephi survive today, it is possible that there's still more out there, as more stills were found as recently as 2002. Thanks so much for joining me for this to review this film. Please like, subscribe, and leave a comment. And join us next time for another episode of the Mormon Movie Reviews, where LDS movie lovers belong, where we will be reviewing Meet the Mormons 1973. So long.